We first just want to thank everyone that's played a part in putting Venture Challenge on. It's been a lot of fun being here, and thank you to the judges for taking time to hear about our business. I'm Peter Thorpe, career firefighter and student in public safety. This is Mike Sanders, engineer at BYU, and then Rhett Weller, second-year MBA student at BYU. We want to tell you about a business that will save billions of dollars, thousands of lives, and be required to be in every home across America.
We got dispatched on a fossil apartment fire, smoke alarms going off. Upon investigation, we found one apartment that was filled with smoke. All we found was that someone had left some beans on the stove cooking and they were smoking a lot. There's over 423 home fires every day in the U.S. that are contributed to unattended cooking. I just started thinking, what if the smoke alarm, what was going off, was able to cut power to the stove instead of waiting for us to get there? And right then I'm like, wow, is that possible? Is that, if this is correctly implemented, this might prevent the number one cause of home fires.
When I first had the idea, I knew that kitchen fires were a local problem, that throughout my career we were going on kitchen fires like this weekly. So I've had to find out if this was just not a local problem, but a national problem. So I got on the National Fire Protection Association website, and I quickly found out this wasn't just a local problem, but a national problem. Kitchen fires are the #1 cause of home fires in the U.S. They are the second most common cause of civilian fire deaths in the U.S. and the #1 cause of fire-related injuries. Every 3.5 minutes, a kitchen fire is ignited. So our solution is prevention, not suppression. You might remember the fire triangle from school. You need those 3 ingredients: oxygen, fuel, and a heat source to have a fire. Take out one of those ingredients, you don't have a fire. And that is what Active Alarm does. We have a product that actually removes the heat source and prevents a fire from ever starting.
So what is the specific solution? It's a device that intelligently cuts power to the stove. It knows if the appliance is on, it knows if the smoke detector is going off, and if the smoke detector is going off, it starts a 3-minute delay, which if it's going off for longer than 3 minutes, it then will cut that power and prevent the fire from ever starting. We wanted this device to be very user-friendly and to fit right in and not be a problem. So we looked at different scenarios, different situations, and to avoid nuisance tripping. So that's why we have the 3-minute delay. If you burn your toast, you're not going to be cutting the stove, cutting power to the stove. You're able to have that time to get the smoke detector to turn off, fan it, or whatever you need to do. If you're not home, 3 minutes is enough time for us to prevent the problem before it turns into a fire. Other things that we thought of was, if steam from your shower sets off your smoke detector, we didn't want that, going to your stove later and going to turn it on and not turning on. And so that's why it monitors and knows whether or not the stove is on. So it's an intelligent device in those aspects and is able to prevent this problem very, very simply, really. We brought some demos here to show you. Peter's going to help me out here a little bit. So when your smoke detector...
know which appliance is the culprit.
So how it works is you have this plug-in device here. This is one of our products. You plug the appliance into this end, and then this plugs into the wall. And in this way, it's able to interrupt the power flow. And so the communication between the smoke detector and our device it's a wireless communication. So that's how it knows the smoke detector is going off. And then wherever this product is implemented, that power then is cut and interrupted.
No, but let's use your example. Let's say it's the oven. There's an oven, a toaster, a blender, 5 different appliances.
Yeah.
And the smoke detector goes out. How does it know who's the bad guy?
So it doesn't necessarily need to know for 2 reasons. One, we have some statistics that show that the majority of these fires, these kitchen fires, occur on the cooktop itself, and then so that's why we're targeting that specific appliance. And then in terms of how does it know, it doesn't necessarily need to know. It's just going to cut power when that smoke detector is off. The important part there, though, is that this device knows if the oven is on. So if the oven is not on, it's not going to trip power to it. So if you're not cooking on the oven on your range, you're using the toaster or using the microwave, and the smoke detector goes off because of those things, it's not going to cut power to the stove itself.
But if you had, I guess it's not on. If you had that device on the stove and that device in the kitchen, same kitchen, and one smoke detector, and they were both on, then the power would be cut off to both?
The power would be cut off to both if both appliances are on, correct.
So you need one of those devices per appliance that you're trying to protect.
Exactly, yeah.
Unless you, but wouldn't it be, if you replaced your circuit breaker, as you talk about in your presentation, the circuit breaker could be like the dual 20 amp to the kitchen to shut everything down.
Yeah, in the panel, it's broken up into different areas, like you're saying.
Okay, and then on this, I think what we're really saying is you'd have a 110 volt device for each of the others, or maybe a power strip that somebody might plug their toaster in their microwave and whatever else is on counter device.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
So we're hitting you guys with questions before you've actually finished your presentation, but they tell us we can do that. And I'm clearly not a firefighter. Appreciate what you guys do. But my initial reaction in reading the plan was, once there's smoke, isn't there already fire? And I'm trying to understand the connection between stopping the fire when there's already smoke, if a smoke detector's purpose is really not to stop a fire, but it's really to save lives, right? Once a fire is ignited at home, the alarm, and there's enough smoke to advise us that there's an issue. It's the sound to depart, and connecting that device to turning off the stove just feels like that doesn't address the real issue.
Great question. I'm glad you brought that up. So how it works from experience from 5 years of being a firefighter and going to these calls weekly, I can tell you that they smoke for hours and hours before there's any actual flames, because it's just food in there or something smoking. So I've been on these calls where they've been smoking for up to 10 hours and there's no flames yet. Eventually, the heated smoke does start to char the cabinets, and eventually, after hours, there is a fire. So that's how the idea works, is because the smoke alarm first goes off that first smoke that's generated, and then it cuts power. And all these statistics that we're talking about, they happen on a cooktop stove. That's why we're targeting a cooktop, just the range there. All these fires, the number one cause isn't the toaster or all these different things, it's the range. And we can and that's why we're starting with that.
So part of your program is not to displace smoke alarms within a home, or to strategically place them in a kitchen. You're presuming that they already exist and they're appropriately placed in this. This will detect the smoke before it actually ignites.
Exactly, thank you. So perfect. Another beautiful thing about this is that our product can be used with any smoke alarm that someone has in their home, and it's already required by code that you have a smoke alarm in the homes, and so the smoke alarm picks it up. It's already there. You don't have to buy a new smoke alarm. All you do is buy our product, and it works with whatever smoke alarm you have.
Explain that for a second in terms of how, since a smoke alarm is not a transmitter of frequency, how does it talk to this device and the one in the circuit breaker box?
So our current prototype uses the frequency of the smoke detector. It outputs the sound of smoke detector is a unique frequency, and so it's picking up on that sound and doing signal processing. There's a microprocessor.
Like a home alarm or something like that would. Go ahead.
Okay. So two products. We have the plug and play for existing homes where the breaker wouldn't be applied. And then we have a product for new home construction, which is we call it a fire prevention breaker. There are a couple of specialized breakers out there, GFCI breakers and AFCI breakers, and they range in the $85 at retail. And we produce the fire breaker for $15, and then the plug and play version about $20, and sell that for about $50. So we've identified these two markets. If the home already exists or in new home construction, we have these two different products to address that. For the new home, for the breaker, the communication is hardwired. There's a communication line already required between smoke detectors, so that when one goes off, the other ones know that. And so we're simply taking that a little bit further to the panel. And in a new home, talking with electricians, they say, yeah, that'd be no problem. We're already wiring. They're already wired together. Taking that communication line to the breaker box wouldn't be a big deal to us. So we feel that's a great fit for new home construction. This is a great fit for existing homes.
Thank you. So, as you can see, we've identified a giant pain in the market. We feel like we've generated some viable solutions, but then we need to analyze the business opportunity. The first question is there a market for this? How big is the market? How and who do we sell to? Who are the competitors? And really, how big is this opportunity? The market for fire safety basically breaks down to two segments. The first segment is the active consumer who is worried about their fire protection. They charge their fire extinguishers. They check the batteries in their smoke alarm. They have fire blankets in their house and in their cars. The second segment is a little more passive consumer. Those are the ones that, typically we love having the smoke alarms, but we don't necessarily check them as often as we can. And we might not go out looking to buy fire prevention materials. Gratefully, the fire marshals exist. This is their job. The fire marshals are there. They're the experts in the industry. They are looking to make sure that we're all safe, whether we want to be or not. So what we did is we went to the fire marshal's office. We're like, here's our product. We're trying to make it viable. Do you have any suggestions for us on what we can do with it? They loved it. We met with Chief Coy Porter up in the state of Utah, and out of our meeting came the idea to put it in the fire code. He was like, we love this, let's put it in the code. They invited us to go to their annual meeting in January and speak to all the fire marshals from Utah, plus some national representatives and some regional representatives from the NFPA. At that meeting, they voted unanimously to amend the Utah Fire Code beginning July of 2013 and include technology like the active alarm in the code. Additionally, there was talks about moving it into the National Fire Code beginning as early as 2015. So the go-to-market strategy, we have two products, there's two strategies. The idea with the plug and play is to look for existing sales channels that are already in place to carry home fire protection and safety measures. The alarm companies have great sales channels and a great sales force in place to already move the device like the active alarm. The idea is to get the traction with them. We met with Keith Allred. He owns Mountain West Alarm. It's a large alarm company in Utah. He loved it. He's like, I'll buy 1,000 right now. And we're like, we only have this one prototype. And he's like, that's fine. He's like, the first 1,000 I want them, I can move them in a matter of a couple weeks. He says, anyway, I can move over 100,000 of these units, no problem. It's a simple value add for their already existing solutions. We think this is a great channel to get the proof of concept down, to really refine the product, get it out there, and get the traction needed to get into the big box retailers, Home Depot, Lowe's, the similar channels to current smoke alarms. Where you'd buy a current smoke alarm, you could buy the active alarm. For the fire breaker, yeah. Oh yeah, yes, we filed the provisional patents for both the plug and play and the fire breaker.
What's the thrust of the patent? Do you have the idea of a smoke alarm talking to a unit to turn something off? Is that idea patented, or just how you do it?
With IP, I don't think you try to include as every possible embodiment, every idea you can possibly think of. So we included every possible embodiment idea that we could think of in the provisional, from the general to specifics. So does that answer your question?
Well, and is that deemed to be novel? Have you been through patent attorneys?
Oh yeah. So we're working with the patent firm in Salt Lake, and the basic concept of power being cut based off a smoke detector going off was originally thought of in 1987. Was the earliest patent that they found, and so the points of novelty that we've been able to identify as patentable, and the things that we're pursuing is things that are specific to the implementation of that general idea.
So that's in the public domain, the
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah.
So you have a patent on the specific execution of how you turn the appliance off.
Right. Yeah.
How many other ways are there to turn appliances off? Aren't there a bunch?
Yeah. There are a lot of ways to cut power.
Does that scare you, or I'm scared, aren't you?
So, thank you. Great question. So to add to that, part of the stuff that we're excited about that are novel is in a breaker form for new construction, and the plug and play of it for existing construction was a novel too. So those are just a handful of our novelties. So great question. Yeah, we're working with a patent firm to help us with that.
Yeah, part of the patent that we filed on the provisional is communicating with the smoke detector wirelessly, through sound, through RF, Z-Wave. There's a number. Pretty much we blanketed the market, and they've done the research for us and covered that.
Yeah, you hope you can catch it all, but you're looking at where's the power flow, because that's what you got to interrupt. And so it starts at the main and goes to the breaker box and eventually ends up at the appliance. And so we talked about building it into the appliance, putting it out the breaker, having it in this case, in between the appliance and the outlet, putting it in the outlet. So, we try to do the best we can to cover every embodiment from where the power comes into the home to when it finally reaches the appliance.
So maybe I missed something there. I'm sure I did. The power, the communication now is audible according to the high-pitched squeal of the smoke alarm that you currently own, or one that you may buy through yourself. So what your patent talks about is that if somebody were to do this via, say, Powerline or Z-Wave or any of those, you have that covered in your patent?
Yeah, we've talked about even things such as superimposing signals over existing power lines. There's, yeah, so, and sound was one of our first thoughts of ways to transmit wirelessly a signal.
Again,
Yes.
I just don't know the patent process well enough. Even if you're not going to make a product just because you say these other things, you've got the idea patented, even if somebody builds it out?
A provisional is like your stake in the ground. Marks the date.
Okay.
Next slide. Thank you. So for the plug-and-play unit and the breaker itself, we estimate the total addressable market in the U.S. to be $3.5 billion. Now, keep in mind, this is just for electric stovetops. Our technology can be easily adapted, and we have plans to adapt it into gas, closed dryers. And we'll talk about this more later, but the idea, this is just the initial market. The plan is to roll out state of Utah first, because that's where they're working with the fire marshals, get with the connections in the western United States, and roll it out nationwide.
So how did you define the total market?
Yeah, we started with the number of homes in the U.S. that have stoves. Then we cut it down to how many have smoke alarms. And then that's pretty much and then multiplied it, obviously, out by the dollar cost.
And you were able to find out how many have electric stoves?
Yeah, the National Fire Prevention Association has all those stats for us. So the competitive landscape, we're not naive enough to think we're the only fire safety company out there. However, the products that already exist all have something in common. They're based on suppression, not prevention. They're after the ignition of the fire itself. So whether it's a basic fire extinguisher or a fire blanket or some innovative products like the fire stove top or the Grotto's fireball, these products all aim to put out the flame once it's started. None of them have the effect of actually cutting the power source, however. It's all suppression. Sprinkling systems is kind of coming to vogue lately. It's a great idea. The couple drawbacks are it's very costly, tens of thousands of dollars to put into homes, and it takes a lot of heat to activate, and then you end up with water damage instead of fire damage. The active alarm, however, we're non-invasive, we're not expensive, it's reusable, and the idea is we actually cut the energy source, removing that element of the fire triangle. So our financial projections, just to give a quick, brief snapshot for here, we estimate that over the next 5 years, this is going to be an $83 million annual revenues in the company. We use conservative assumptions, adaptions to the fire code, and including rolling it out to the channels through the alarm companies. Management team. We feel like we have a great solution here to a great need in the market, but we understand the execution is key. We feel like we've assembled a great team to help us get this off the ground. Peter Thorpe, career firefighter, worked for Provo City for 5 years, understands the fire prevention, the fire industry in and out. Mike Sanders is a mechanical engineer. Between working on his graduate degree and his undergraduate degree, he has helped launch new products to the market. We have another engineer that's helping us out. His specialty is robotics sensing. So he understands how the sensing technology works and exactly how to get the sensing technology into the active alarm. We have a master electrician who has owned his own electrical company for over 10 years, has an MBA, understands the electrical business. Myself, I'm a second-year MBA student, but I've worked in the industry for 8 years before coming back to school. When I did my undergraduate degree, after I graduated, I started my own company. I started with 5 guys in a truck, and we went to over 100 employees and $10 million in annual revenue every year. We feel like we really have the necessary components of the executive team to really get the active alarm off the ground. We understand also we need an advisory board. Everyone we've talked to has been excited about this product, so we have kind of had the pick of the litter for our advisory board. Scott Adams was the former president of the International Fire Marshals Association. He has nationwide contacts that are crucial in getting this rolled out nationwide to the fire code. Chief Corey Porter is the deputy fire marshal in Utah. Loves the idea. He's really our champion in getting us in the fire code. Peter actually on Thursday was unable to be here with us because he was meeting with the fire marshals, drafting legislation. They were writing things on, where it goes in the code, whether it goes in the smoke alarm or the electrical, and it's moving forward. That process is already moving forward. Gary Mag is the VP of Protection for Blend Tech. Maybe you've seen the Will It Blend commercials with the throw your iPhone in a blender. He is really instrumental in them. He's their key OEM processor. He understands the manufacturing side, in addition to the UL certification and the product liability side of the product. Marty Rasmussen is a serial entrepreneur, has over 35 patents. He invented the original surge protector. He's been great and a great resource for us. In addition, our faculty advisor, Tom Peterson at BYU, has been awesome to help us out.
So to start wrapping this up, we want everyone to know that this is not just a product, but a business. We've talked about where we're going to be starting to go into the market is the low-hanging fruit on the stoves, but this technology can be adapted to any appliance in the home. All major appliances we see having this one day even built in or come along with it, all kitchen appliances. AC units are also a big problem in the fire industry. The belts burn up. We can have this in AC units. Dryers, I'm sure we've all heard of dryer fires. That can be in there. It can have something for Christmas trees can be plugged in this, they start to smoke, it cuts power to it. So the possibilities are really endless. People always ask, can we do this on a gas stove? We absolutely can do this on a gas stove. It's not the most common cause of fires, but we can go there. It's very simple to just have a solenoid to just cut power or turn off the gas to it. And then a whole other realm is CO, carbon monoxide in the homes. All your gas appliances that put off CO, your water heater, your furnace, we go on, as a fire department, we go on those quite often. And homes already have CO detections in there. It detects the COs. We can just cut power to these problems and save lives that way. So the possibilities with this technology are really endless. In summary, this business will save billions of dollars, save thousands of lives, be required in every home across America, and that's why we feel this is a $100 million opportunity.
Going back to this concept is a very powerful idea. I commend you. Whoever patented it originally in 1987, what happened to that?
So we've looked at it. We're working with Bateman IP. We've had them kind of look at it.
No, I'm not questioning the IP.
Oh, sure.
I'm asking, how did they execute on it? Why is that not a big business?
Okay, I understand. Thank you. They just didn't do anything with it. Maybe it's because the patents aren't assigned to anybody, so they just didn't do anything with it. Maybe they didn't understand the potential that they had with them. They just didn't have the background that maybe we come with.
I think sometimes Pete's modest about his contribution to this product and this project, but I think what we've seen a lot is without being in the fire industry and knowing how these fires work and how things work there, I think that's one reason why this hasn't grown. And in the fire industry, the culture there, typically it's not necessarily an innovative culture. They have what they use, they like what they use, and they stick with that. And they don't necessarily try to push outside the box and come up with new ways of doing things. So I think with what the genius of what Peter did in this process and what he's added is saying, this is so important. Why don't we move it towards fire code, and why don't we start working with the fire marshals on this? And I think that's probably one of the reasons why they didn't go anywhere is they didn't necessarily move towards working with the fire marshals and maybe seeing how that could be implemented in fire code.
Yes, I want to follow up on that. That's exactly where I was going. So part of the drivers here, part of your strategy is to get the fire marshals to write it into the codes. And I understand the fire marshal in Provo, and you got him signed up, and he's excited, and he's gone to the state capitol. I mean, is it that easy? I mean, can you go across 49 states or federal legislation and with all due respect, have somebody in the fire department tell the construction industry what they have to build?
Yeah, we'll let Pete speak to that.
Great question. Thank you. So the answer is yes. The fire marshals, we just didn't meet the ones locally in Pro. We've been meeting with the state fire marshals, even some national representatives, and they are so excited about that. So I wish you guys could be there. When we present this idea to all the fire marshals, one of them came up and wanted to hug us.
No, I understand they're excited about it, and I understand why they're excited about it. What I'm trying to understand is, can the fire marshal essentially dictate and create regulations that will govern the building industry across the country?
Yes.
That's kind of scary, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, actually, so one thing about it, we actually met with the legislature about this as well, Senator Bramble in Utah. And one part that he loved about it was the fire marshals actually trying to get, originally they were trying to get fire extinguishing systems, the sprinkling systems in all the homes. The contractors don't like that. I mean, that's tens of thousands of dollars, and they feel like this could sail through code just because it's kind of a compromise. Like, okay, look, we won't put in the sprinkling systems, but you have to put in something that cuts the power to the #1 cause of home fires in the home. So the idea is it's a better solution than, going full sprinkling system in a home. It's a lot cheaper.
Is there someone you can hire, perhaps like a professional lobbyist or somebody like that, who could take this initiative quickly?
Yes, on Thursday when I was helping draft the bill, they referred us to a company out of Colorado that does specialize in clients that have a product they want to push through making code.
Can you speak to your, your equity requests or your capital requests and what
yes.
your equity give is?
Yes, I can. So actually, sorry. Unfortunately, a lot has happened in the last 3 weeks. The plan you're looking at is a little out of date as we are trying to get this off the ground as fast as we can. Originally, we were thinking in the $100,000 range. We've actually updated that. The idea is we want to be fast on this. The code's coming up due. We have to have the product viable by the fall to present to the legislature. We feel like we've got it in place. Our next step is UL certification, FCC certification, getting the molds and the construction, the initial run done. We're looking for about $350,000 to get this off the ground, just the initial, an initial funding.
And what kind of equity on that?
We're thinking about 30%.
And tell me, is your construction going to be domestic?
Initially, our first run, we're looking domestic, but once we get it solidified here, definitely we're open to moving it overseas.
Just one last comment is that I was looking at your operating margins, and if you're going to go to a lot of the large discount stores, those are fat operating margins.
Yeah, so going to the discount stores, the idea is, some of it is built in right now at a retail price. Here we actually build in the wholesale price. Understand that the margins will get crimped going from wholesale to retail.
I think your margin structure is very workable, and it leaves you a lot of room to be able to add people into the food chain there that are going to take their little bites out of it.
You bet.
What I really have to say, though, you really struck something that we haven't talked about, is that when you have UL approval, it's an oxymoron when you say the word speed. Those guys are like tar.
Yeah.
And more, there are many times multiple layers. Like in Los Angeles, there's CSA, which is City of Los Angeles, and that approval process takes, at least I know from building electronics, somewhere between 6 months and 2 years. And each one's different. So it can take maybe 6 months with one and the other. And they're very, very expensive to run those tests and to get those folks to come up to it. How do you work with that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we actually looked at working with the UL and how it could work. There's two ways you can do it. You can either present them your product and they go test it and do it, or you can actually pay them a lot more money and work through it. So the idea with one of our initial funds that we need is we want to, actually work with them as we develop it to get it certified on a step-by-step basis. That speeds up the process. The estimates we've gotten from them are 2 to 3 months.
What's the cost on UL approval and the high-speed lane?
Yeah, high speed is about $35,000.
Is it between your operating cash flows and your equity, initial equity, you're not going to utilize any outside monies because I see no interest income?
Oh, yeah. The idea was an equity.
Expense?
Yeah, the idea was equity at the initial funding.
So I'd still like to go back to this regulatory and combine that with a patent position.
Okay.
So you're telling me you've got, my words, an airtight patent position on this type of device. And the regulators are going to write a regulation that will require this kind of device in the code. So they are going to write a regulation that will only benefit your business. I mean, there just seems to be something un-American about that.
Yeah, right. The force mark. You can't force you to buy one product. No, that's a great concern. And we actually, the way we built out our model wasn't assuming 100% of the market. The idea with building it into the fire code is just to create the market and get a part of it. So our assumptions are in the 20 to 30% range in getting part of the market.
Who's going to get the other 70%?
Oh, I assume the big boys will jump on.
But how are they going to do that? You've got the patent.
we would love to license it to them. So, and one idea with the licensing is, in the appliances themselves, if we can prove the technology, let's just build it into the appliance itself and license it there. But we're not in the appliance making industry, but we would love to work with them one-on-one and get into their appliances.
Just to push on the patent a little bit further then, because I'm not willing to give you yet, you've got this monopoly here. Your patent is how you receive that signal and then shut things off. The concept of an alarm going off and shutting things out is old, right?
Right.
Okay, so how many different ways are there to do it other than the way you're doing it?
To cut the power.
Yeah, to listen to alarm or somehow connect the alarm to the stove and shut it off. Because that's an old idea, if I understand you right. You have a way of doing it in which there must be multiple ways. Or do you, go ahead. You get that part.
Yeah. So some of the ways we thought about, and I don't know that I could give you a finite number of how many ways there are to do it, but sound is one way. There's electromagnetics, which includes RF. There's optics. Smoke detectors is a simulated form of olfaction, smell. So there's many ways to transmit the signal. And then in terms of cutting the power, there's relays, standard relays. There's triacs for switching AC power. So there's a lot of ways to do different things.
What's your unfair advantage?
What was that?
What's your unfair advantage in the way you do it? I'm now convinced a lot of people can do this.
Yeah. Did you? Sure. Okay.
This specific product into the
I think one of the strengths is the way we've gone about it. Instead of just a business plan, but looking at the business model and trying to do due diligence in our business model generation. We originally went to the fire marshals to get buy-in from them and to understand, where might we be going wrong here. And so, and we've done that in several different areas to make sure that we end up with the solution that is the best solution. So there may be other ways to do it which are inferior, and we're okay with that. What we want to try to nab up primarily is what is the best way to do that, and how do we find out what's the best way to do that? We talk to the fire marshals, we talk to the electricians, we talk to the homeowners, we talk to the builders associations. We try to talk to everyone along the line and say, what do you see the pros and cons are? What do you hate about this? What do you love about it? And to try to use that to narrow in on what's the ideal solution. But, irrefutably, there will be competitors, there will be people that come up and try to do it, but hopefully we've been able to nail enough of those points to come up with a solution that's hard to beat.
So one question here is that you've done that in Provo, Utah, which is relatively a small town. When you go to New York City or New Jersey or Chicago, you run into a lot of things that are both political, illegal graft, and also many people have their hands in their pockets that they don't want to change anything. That's a whole different fire marshal and not somebody you can really call on the phone and go to see.
Yeah, so that's actually part of our hope in finding a strategic partner that can help us with those, big political issues. We understand they're there. We just hope we have a first mover advantage here that buys us enough time to get that strategic partner. We think we have a great idea, and that we can attract that sort of talent that can get us into. I understand New York City. It's so much fun.
The concept of the code amendment, though, that doesn't relate to existing homes.
Correct.
This is a small piece of the total market, relatively small piece, that deals with future construction, all right, to get your permits and so forth. So aside from using your brethren in the fire prevention and in the fire business, which is a great marketing tool, sounds like you've already tapped into that. Have you done any tests to determine the willingness of a consumer to part with $20? Am I done? I'm out of time. Part with $20 when they can turn off the stove theoretically and avoid the whole problem to begin with.
Can I answer it or no?
You can answer that in 10 seconds.
10 seconds? Yeah, so the idea is you would have to be home to turn off the stove. This is if you're not home.
Good
Thank
answer.
you. Thank you.
Good job.